the LaxFactor podcast.
What is up, college lacrosse fans? You're watching another episode of the LaxFactor podcast. We're on episode 284, I think is the official number here. I am your host, Ted Hoost, and it is lacrosse season next weekend. Saturday, I believe it's February 1st. We have nearly a full slate of games, just about, and it's just crazy that week 0 I don't think is really going to be as much of a thing anymore, where only a handful of teams played the first week, and then the second week everybody plays. So, we've got a full slate of games. The InsideLacrosse preseason top 20 has come out. I was doing previews, so I've already previewed Notre Dame and Syracuse, my number 1 and my number 2. But because the season is fast approaching, I want to get through my top 10 at least, so you guys know how I voted in the media poll for InsideLacrosse. And that's pretty much what we're going to do today. Format for the rest of the season moving forward, a big episode Sunday, and I'm going to put out smaller episodes during the week covering other things. So this is your big episode instead of kind of the shorts that I've been putting out for Syracuse and Notre Dame, and I talked about a couple of goalies and things of that sort. So let's dive into it first, and the first team that I would like to talk about here is Denver. Let's zoom in on this so you can get the full view here of Noah Manning. Denver, they lose their top 2 leading scorers in Lampert and Silstrop. Not great. They return the bulk of the guys behind them with Cody Malosky, who was, I believe, their 3rd leading scorer. Noah Manning had 1 point less than Malosky. I think Malosky had like 32, Manning 31. Mick Kelly, Joshua Carlson, a bunch of guys coming back that have experience here. Even Malosky, I think he was a redshirt freshman last year. But still, you got a full season at Denver under your belt. You beat Syracuse in the playoffs. Not a bad go here. All of them coming back have put up at least 27 points or more a season ago. And then I think with the offensive system that Denver runs, I think they'll be pretty good offensively overall. They've struggled to find a true identity, but by the end of the season, they're a solid team every year, even with the coaching change and everything like that. So, yeah, I think they're going to be fine offensively. The defense lost AJ Mercurio, Jack DiBenedetto. Terrible. That's terrible losses, and that's going to be where Denver, I think, gets stung the most. Adam Hanglin started all 17 games last year. Jimmy Freehill led the Pios in caused turnovers a year ago, and I think Freehill was an All-American preseason-wise here. I believe I did give Freehill one of my votes. I don't know where. So there's talent returning. Malcolm Kleben, who was a serviceable goalie for Denver. I think that Denver struggled with just finding a goalkeeper that they're comfortable with, that they know can serve them and play good week in and week out. Not that Kleben's not a capable goalie, he is, but they need to find a little bit more consistency in net, and they're not going to have that. But Kleben's at least a returner that they know what they're getting, and they know they can trust him, especially with the defense they had in front of them last year. That's going to be the big question mark this year, is what's that going to look like on the defensive side of the ball. I don't feel good about this pick overall. After putting everything together, I think I'd probably bump Denver. My number 12 and my number 11 team. 11, I had Penn. 12, I had Penn State. I feel like after looking at what they both return, and then how they did in the transfer portal, I feel like in hindsight, I probably would have bumped Denver down as far as 12. I like what Penn has returning a little bit more. I love what Carroll in goal for Penn. So I feel, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit because there's a bunch of regrets I have. I have regrets for the All-American votes and things of that sort, where if I could just go back and change it after the fact, I would. But that's what the midseason and end-of-season voting is for here. And to boot, the only reason I have regrets here is because I'm kind of we're all flying blind to a degree, trying to figure out who's back, who's not, what youngsters are going to step up and just be monsters, maybe erasing a need or something like that you lost to graduation. So Denver, they're my number 10, but I think I'd probably put them just on the outside of the top 10 if I had it to do over again, but I don't. My next pick, I have Johns Hopkins at number 9. Losing Jacob Angelis, a very tough pill to swallow. Losing him and Garrett Degnan, even worse. They combined for 123 points. Were number 1 and 2 in scoring for the Jays. Now, they do get back their number 3 and 4 scorers in Matt Collison, a guy who I pegged as a first-team All-American midfielder. Russell Melendez, who I would say, even by his standards, he had a down season a season ago. When he broke out, he put up a bunch of points, and he was kind of all the rage there for a little bit. And I think last year he struggled to find his identity overall. Collison has all the tools, man. This dude is a big, as I like to call him, big boy midfielders. He's going to be one of the best in the country, and it will be interesting to see. He put up 23 goals and 10 helpers a season ago on an offense that he didn't need to try too hard, but when it came to crunch time, Collison was their guy overall. So I think he's going to be one of the best in the nation. If Melendez can get back to the success that he had a couple of seasons ago, that's going to help Hopkins a great deal, and maybe they don't fall off too much offensively, but they're going to need some youngsters to step up big time, fill some holes. That's what she said, especially as it relates to dodging and drawing slides. The reason I didn't drop them further is because from a defensive standpoint, they're returning, the big cats that they need to. They have the number 5 ranked defense returning in 2025, Scott Smith, guy that you're looking at right now, still at Hopkins. Any defense that counts him as a starter is going to be very good. Quentin Kilrain, Carson Brown, transfer goalie Luke Stout. I know one of my buddy's kids here, Dash Lamity, will be going to Hopkins next season. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But they've been trying to kind of fill gaps here until they get themselves a youngster goalie that can maybe play for 4 years. I don't know for sure if Lamity is that guy. But I would presume, as highly ranked as he is, and is the way that Hopkins has been kind of filling gaps with goalkeepers with a transfer in Erlin last season and now Stout this season, that it's maybe possible that he gets to start all 4 unless they get another crazy transfer. I know his father's probably listening to this and is going to hit me up and fill me in. So Stout, a very good goalie, transfer from Loyola, will more than make up for the loss of Erlin a season ago. Let's not say more than make out, but just a very capable ball stopper. So they're not going to be hurting in any manner on the defensive side of the ball. Their rope unit is incredible as well. So from a defensive standpoint, these guys are, I dare say, loaded, and I think they're going to be fine on that side of the ball, and that's why I didn't drop them further. And then, once again, as I kind of look at this and we go through the other teams, there's maybe 9 isn't the right spot for them. Maybe they should have been bumped up a little bit more, but we have what we have. I think that the offense is going to take some time to sort itself out. I think that veteran-laden defense is going to keep them in the hunt all season long. I don't think they're necessarily a Final Four team unless we get some surprises on the offensive side of the ball. But like the others in the top 10, the stars could align, things work out for them, upset here and there, and boom, you end up in the Final Four. Crazy things happen. My next team, number 8, I have Yale. They're my sleeper because getting Chris Lyons and Leo Johnson back despite losing Brandow, I mean, that's huge. They lose their two of their top 3 leading scorers. I believe Lyons led them in 2023, and it's just you lose those 2 guys, Lyons and Johnson, and now you get them back. I think that their offense is just going to be absolutely electric. I can't convey to you, in fact, without seeing you in person, like how good I think these 2 are going to be as a duo on attack here. In 2023, Lyons was the Bulldogs' leading scorer, 62-12 that dude went. Johnson was their 3rd leading scorer, 40-22. Remember, they were just freshmen playing alongside Brandow when that happened. That season, I had Brandow pegged as a Tewaarton finalist, and then these 2 dudes come out and then just run roughshod all over the nation here. Brandow was still their 2nd leading scorer that year, but either way, you get the idea. They're very good. I can't imagine how good they're going to be with both of them back. Also back, guys that picked up the slack a season ago, guys like Carson Cool, I never remember how to pronounce it, David Anderson, Max Krevsky, and more. So Yale is dripping in the offensive swagger juice, as we would say. Defensively, let's be honest, if Yale doesn't play defense, not a big thing for them. Cornell is going to be a very similar team here this year in that way as well. They have some guys back, including netminder Jared Paquette, 48.8% a season ago, 50.9 over his career. So their defense was pretty bad last year. Had a rough go in cage, but I believe Paquette's actually a solid keeper. I think that save percentage is less on him and probably more on the defense that was in front of him. So I think they have a capable keeper in Paquette. Their issue, though, obviously is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. But like Cornell, I think they're going to be able to outscore teams. I think that offensively they're going to be good enough that, yes, they're going to give up goals, but they're going to be capable of putting 15 up a game, depending on the team. It could be 19 in this one, 20 in this one. I think you'll see these guys win a lot of games with 15 or more goals in that game. So Yale, they are my number 8. We get to Duke. Now, what we all know about Duke is they got murdered in graduation here. Brennan O'Neill, Josh Zawada, Dyson Williams, all gone. I think Duke maybe lost more offensive production than any other team in the nation. 224 points to those 3 players alone, and they lost some other guys too. Andrew McAdory is going to get a chance to prove that he can be one of the big cats. I put him in my preseason All-American rankings as an attackman because I cannot envision a world in which he isn't anchoring the attack for Duke this season. So you see a lot of these guys get listed as midfielders, but in the end they end up playing attack. I think McAsee may have been like that a couple years ago, but now he's an attackman. So I think McAdory is going to be the guy anchoring them on attack. He was 28-9 a season ago on a very crowded, not just attack unit, but on a very crowded offensive unit overall. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see him jump from that, what is that, just under 40 points to 60 plus, because they're going to need him to, I would assume. And that's a big jump, but a kid like McAdory can absolutely do that. Ben Johnston, also back 29 points a year ago. I think he's going to be one of the best midfielders in the country this year as, what is he, a sophomore? Max Sloat, 27 points a season ago. I saw Sloat while I was watching film just dodge and throw a couple of really nice cross crease passes, coming down the left, hitting someone on that right side, kind of across from the field. So I like Sloat. I think is going to be a big cat too. Both of them are more than capable scorers, but they dodge with their heads up. They can feed guys. They can create offense for other people, which is always important. They lose Charles Balsamo to the transfer portal, which I was surprised about. So they're going to need Luke Graham from Richmond, who they picked up, and Eric Maliver from Maryland. Both very good lacrosse players. They're going to need them to step right in and shoulder some load. And I think that's going to help Duke offensively. You're going to see them drop a little bit in terms of production, especially early in the season, but let's not pretend like they still don't have a roster full of killers, because they legitimately do. Defensively, they're going to be solid, mostly because their specialists overall are solid. Their defensive midfield units is one of the best in the country. Between Gray and McGuire, those two guys, top notch, both All-American caliber short stick D mids. Paul Wethington, transfer from Princeton. Then you got Tommy Drago, LSM, Cal Gerard, face off to round that unit out. Jake Wilson, Henry Bard, and keeper Patrick Jamison all played heavily a season ago. Jamison actually surprised people as a rookie in the ACC, looked very good against a tough schedule, had a 53.1% save percentage. Dukes, they lose a ton of talent offensively. Their defense hung just outside the top 20 a season ago. So while I don't have them as a favorite for making it to Memorial Day weekend, I certainly don't think they're very far off, and anything could happen with the talent that they have. If they gel, they have a shot. If they don't, they still have a very good lacrosse team, and I can see a scenario, in almost every scenario, I think they make the NCAA tournament by season's end. So we just have to see, how they progress throughout to see how far they can advance in said tournament. Next, guys, we're going to talk about my number 6 team. I think Cornell at 6 is good. I know a lot of people had them higher than that. They have the top returner in the country and on the offensive side of the ball in terms of CJ Kirst. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. Their attack unit as a whole ranked number 1 by InsideLacrosse with Kirst, Michael Long, and then the young gun Ryan Goldstein. They're all back. And actually, Long was their leading scorer a season ago, not Kirst. Cornell's midfield was ranked number 3 by InsideLacrosse. Hugh Kelleher, William Firth, AJ Nikolic, and Danny Cadigan. They're all back. So Cornell's as deep as you can get in terms of offense. Their offense, I would say, looks very much like Syracuse's offense, except I do like Kirst more as an initiator, as a dodger, and kind of I think Kirst is obviously the front runner for the Tuarton this season. Now, on the bad side of the field, and I call it the bad side of the field because for Cornell, that's what it is, young goaltender Wyatt Nust played extremely well as a freshman, a 57% save percentage, which was among the tops in the nation. He pulled that off with a defense that gave up a ton of quality shots on him. So I'm really high on Wyatt Nust, and I think he's one of kind of the sleeper goalies in terms of only a sophomore, but is going to be one of the best goalies in the country if he keeps up like this. A season ago, offense was championship ready. They ranked 3rd in the country in efficiency. Their defense, on the other hand, 11th worst in the nation at stopping their foes from scoring. If Cornell's going to have any shot whatsoever at getting back to championship weekend, Nust and their offense are going to have to, bring their A game, and they're going to have to bring it all the time. He's going to have to put up 15 saves, 20 saves in some games to get a win. The offense is going to have to consistently score more than 12, 13, 14 goals to pull wins out of their hat. I don't have confidence, though, that the defense is going to be shored up, and I think they're not even going to crack the top 20. I think that they'll improve a little bit between this season and last season, but not a whole lot, and I think a lot of that improvement is going to be put on the shoulders of Nust. Now, do I think their offense can outscore teams? Absolutely, just like I said. With Yale, I think Cornell's going to win a lot of games by scoring more than 15 goals while their opponents are hanging right behind them, and I think Nust and Cage is capable of getting hot, hurting some opponents, and maybe taking them out of their offensive game, and I think that's going to end up being a difference for Cornell. They were 4th in the U.S. Lacrosse poll. I had them at 6th here on mine. The next team we are going to talk about here, I had to make sure I was recording here. There was a while ago I had not recorded, and I did the whole episode, 30 minutes or whatever it was. I think it was the first one I put out here this season, and I realized after I was talking the whole time, I recorded it, but I didn't have audio for any of it. Let me just stop here in the middle, though. Good time to stop in the middle to tell everybody. You can go to LaxFactor.com, get yourself a T-shirt, get yourself some get yourself some swag, support the channel, and all that good stuff. Like, subscribe, share with everybody wherever you see this crap, and we're going to get back to it here. Now, my number 5 team is Virginia. Now, losing Connor Schellenberger and Peyton Cormier, it seems like they've been playing at UVA for a decade or more. They're 162 combined points that they're losing are going to be greatly missed. However, 2 guys can step in and do a great job of picking up the number 1 and number 2 slack for the Cavs, and it's McCabe Millen and Griffin Schutz. Throw Ryan Colsey in, who I think developed nicely last year, and the Cavs have they're going to drop off in terms of production, I think, and I think they're going to have to figure some things out. But these guys that they have stepping in to fill the roles of Schellenberger and Cormier, Millen, Schutz, I mean, they're 2 of the highest recruits that in the country in their classes. I think maybe both of them were number 1 even at one point. So they're going to be fine on that way. They also they steal Charles Balsamo from Duke, which is huge. They steal Johnny Hackett from Bryant in the portal. Both have very quick first steps. Both are excellent dodgers. They're going to be able to pick up a great deal of that dodging slack. I don't expect to see a huge drop-off in terms of production. I just think it's going to take time for them to figure that crap out. And I think the dudes that have been chomping at the bit, I think that they're going to be very excited to get out there, go full speed, and get a chance to be the guys to shoulder the load for the Cavs. Defensively, same crap. They shed a lot of talent to graduation. Kastner was an absolute beast, and losing him hurts the length that he provided in the middle of that defense. But Griffin Kaloji and Ben Ware, John Schroeder, George Fulton, all experienced guys. I love Kaloji and Ware, actually. Goaltender Matthew Nunes is back after posting a 53% save percentage a season ago. So, I mean, it's going to be a solid defense, albeit I think they just won't be quite as long and strong and down to put some beatings on if I want to be a big tool. I didn't plan that. I just literally just heard long and strong and then immediately thought and down to get the friction on, so I had to throw that out there. It was kind of lame that I just explained my joke and my reference. I should have just let it live in the ether. So just like Maryland, there's a part of me, and I haven't even talked about Maryland. I'm assuming I already talked about Maryland because I was going front to back, and now I'm wiping back to front. My wife told me never wipe, the kid back to front. It's a nightmare. So I'm doing the thing my wife told me not to. But I think that Virginia is going to be like Maryland in the sense that I don't know if 5 is right. You could have put Maryland a little bit lower than this, or Virginia a little bit lower than this. You could have put them a little bit higher than this. I could be comparing against the real Inside Lacrosse poll, which I probably should be doing. It would have given you a lot more context for how everything rolled. Maybe I will do that here before the end. We'll kind of go through and compare. But anyway, I think Virginia's going to be good. I just think they have to figure some crap out offensively. Defensively, I think they're pretty solid. They've got returners back, known quantities back on the defensive side I think they're still going to be long, rangy. I think they're just going to have to get their feet under them on all aspects of play. But mainly kind of, we say what, like face-off dot. Is Nunes that ACC caliber goalie that they need? But I think offensively they're going to be great. I think defensively they're going to be solid, and then we just have to see how all the other pieces fall into place. Princeton, my number 4, Princeton. There's a lot, and I think other people are a little bit higher on Princeton even than I am, but there's a lot to like about them in terms of returning offensive firepower. They get back everyone, including Coulter Mackesy, 40 and 24 a season ago. He kind of broke out. What I'll say about Mackesy, because I'm a big fan, and especially watching him through the playoffs, it was pretty cool. But he's a volume shooter. He's one of those guys that he's going to put up some goals, but he's also going to take 10 shots in that game. So I feel like if he can shoot the rock at a slightly better clip, and then those young guns around him can continue to improve upon the success they had a season ago, Princeton's going to be a very tough draw within the Ivies. They have the number 4 ranked returning defense per InsideLacrosse, bringing back Colin Mulshine, Michael Bath, and Cooper Kistler. They'll anchor that defense. They're expected to have a lot of young guys contributing around them at a very high level. Andrew McMeekin, he's back to take the draws, and he is a very capable faceoff guy. 55.1% a season ago, 8-2 in terms of goals and assists. Picked up 132 ground balls, which was a single season school record for Princeton. And I mean, if you know the history of Princeton and midfielders picking up 132 ground balls and breaking that single season record is a big deal. And in fact, the reason this is the case, at which I was very surprised to read this statistic. I don't remember where I even picked it up from, probably InsideLacrosse. He was the first Princeton faceoff guy to win more than 50% of his draws since 2012. So they've had must be a void there at the dot for a long time that he filled and did a great job with. Princeton, very good lacrosse team. By the end of the season, I think I think that you will find them pretty much picking up where they left off. And I think by the end of the season, they will legitimately probably encompass this, I'm saying this stupidly, but they're going to be the team that I think a lot of people think they are. I think that they're all the young guys, as long as they don't fall off, they're all going to be a little bit wiser, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, all of that good stuff. So I think that their big issue is in cage. And beyond that, I like the roster all the way across, except, now they lose Gianfrancaro to North Carolina via the transfer portal and graduation. So I think they're going to have to figure that part out in goal. But like I said with Notre Dame, especially Notre Dame, but also with Syracuse, this is the best position you could be in. I won't even compare Syracuse to these guys. I think Princeton's situation for a new goaltender is similar to what Notre Dame's position is in terms of a new goaltender, because they have a defense coming back that's going to be able to protect this dude as he figures things out. So offensively, they're going to score goals. Defensively, one of the best defensive units in the nation. They've got a great face-off guy. So Princeton is my favorite for making it out of the Ivy League as the Ivy League champion. And really, if you consider it, they just have to be able to outscore Yale and Cornell is what it comes down to. And don't front on Penn. I have them at 11. Penn's got a goalkeeper in Emmett Carroll that can change the face of a game. But overall, in terms of returning talent, I like Princeton just because I think they just have defensively. It comes down to their defense. Offensively, they are not the best team in the Ivies. They're probably the third, almost for sure the third best team in the Ivies. But defensively, it's not even close. My number 3 is Maryland, little Section 4 shout out right here. Now, before putting this list together, a lot of people are going to be like, how in the hell do you have Maryland at number 3? And I don't fault you for having that view. I just think it's Maryland, and I'm not messing around. They're going to be number 3. They're probably going to make it to the Final Four again here, which puts them kind of in that top 4 space. If we're willing to reward, which I've talked about this a lot, if we're willing to reward teams for the previous season's success, which everybody does when it comes to the number 1 ranking, why wouldn't I kind of do that with the other teams? Yes, Maryland lost a lot, but year in and year out, they've fill those gaps, and they come back and they put a championship level team roster together, and they perform. So Braden Erksa is back. He's one of the reasons I think they'll be okay. Eric Spanos, that's their top 2 leading scorers, and they're back. Now, they do lose the next 4 after them in Maliver, Chorus, Maltz, and Syracuse. Transfer Jack Dowd, though, from Salisbury, big monster of an attackman. Noah Armitage, Matthew Keegan, Bryce Ford. These are all transfers that are going to help right away. Speaking of Keegan here, Keegan put up 118 points over his career at the other BU, Binghamton University, right down the road from me. 87 and 31, 36% shooting percentage over the last 2 seasons. He had 60 points in 2023, dropped in production last year, 47 points. He was, 47 goals in 2023, 34 goals in 2024, 13 assists in each of those seasons. Penn State had found some success with a Binghamton transfer running midfield a season or two ago, so I expect the Terps are going to really enjoy picking up Keegan. I think he's going to be one of those under-the-radar transfers that ends up becoming a big name here by the end of the year. Jack Dowd, the grad student from Salisbury, is both a monster in terms of production and his size. Big boy, 6'5", 225, 79 points a season ago for Salisbury, 45 and 34. A big target, likes to kind of hang around the fringes, can kind of mow someone over and get a shot off, has a big shot, volume shooting guys. His shooting percentage wasn't the greatest, but he produced, and you can't hate that. As I typed this up, though, as I was typing this up, I kept coming back to the fact that are they too high? Nobody else, I think, probably had Maryland as high as 3 in their poll. But every time I'd kind of go back through those other teams, they didn't have the transfer haul that Maryland has, along with the returning guys on top of it. McNaney's won a national championship in cage and is now probably fully healthy after getting back and playing the full season last year. Defensively, Zappatello moved on, but Colin Burlace is back. Jack McDonald are back on defense. That's pretty good, right? No more Luke Weirman dominating the faceoffs. That's a big deal. But like I said, Logan McNaney is very good in cage. Section 4 guy. You got to love that. I may very well have placed Maryland. I don't know. I keep wanting to just talk about how I toiled over this because I literally moved them. And what I kept doing in my notes document here, which you can see my notes here, I just kept copying or cutting them from where they were and putting them below Princeton. At one point I had them at 6. Another time I had them at 5. But then it caused me to bump teams in weird ways, as I was going through the list. So moral of the story, I'm an idiot. I'm talking like a moron here. You can tell I'm out of practice. And Maryland is my number 3. And I can eat shit by the end of the season, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, they're a really good lacrosse team all the time. For the doubters, though, and this was the big reason I ended up going with them where I did. They beat Princeton twice, so how could I put Princeton ahead of a team where that team beat them twice, both I think in the regular season and in the playoffs here? And then they lost to Virginia in their first matchup, but then waxed them in the national semis. They beat number 2 Duke in the quarters. So yes, they lost people to graduation, but I believe they may have, through the transfer portal and just because they're Maryland, I think they bring back enough that they're not going to slip outside of the top 6. And I put them at 3 simply because of the success they had last year. And I just am not willing yet to pop Princeton, Virginia, Cornell over top of them. And then you already know Syracuse, and I purposely did these guys last because we have already talked about them in detail. Offensively, probably they bring back more offensive production than anyone else other than maybe Cornell. Spalina's 88 points, Hiltz's 65 points, Thompson's 38, Leo's 37, English's 34, Roa's 21, Jackson Birtwhistle. I think you'll see probably not a huge uptick in production because everybody's pretty much back, but I bet you he gets above 18 to 20 points this season as well. Defensively, Billy Dwan, it was a second-team preseason All-American here. He's back. Carter Rice, he was also, I think, a numbered All-American here when the preseason poll just hit. I gave him, I think, my second-team All-American, maybe third. So Riley Figueroas, who knows? He came back last year from an injury and had to get reacclimated. 28 turnovers forced, and I think by the end of the year had finally gotten his feet under him. He could very well be their best defender, and he's not even a numbered preseason All-American. Then you get transfer Mike Grace. So you get the idea. We talked about him. They lost the faceoff guy, but Mullen in Cone, but Mullen is back, and he had the same winning percentage overall. Question mark is in cage for Syracuse, but once again, you've got a good, solid returning defense. He is not McCool, who is probably going to be the starter, is not in a position like Notre Dame's goalie is going to be, or like who was the other one? Princeton's new goalie is going to look at, but it's still not a bad position to be in, and he's a veteran, has been on the roster for 2 seasons, so he'll be ready to go. My number 2 team, Notre Dame. And once again, I already talked about him here, so we're not going to rip through it all again. They lost a lot to graduation, mainly Pat Kavanaugh and Liam Enteman. but and Eric Dobson at the midfield. So they lost important guys pretty much in every position group, but they bring back the best defense in the country. They have Sean Light back, Nate Schwitzenberg, Thomas Ricciardelli, who will be starting in cage, top-ranked goalie from 2023's class. That puts them in very solid ground, as I had said before. They got some transfers they're going to fill in. So Notre Dame is my preseason number one. I think that a lot of people put them here, and deservingly so, because of their success last year. I think the reality is they deserve to be here, but they have a lot of things that they have to answer, because I think, and I said this in my preview of them, there was a swag that this team had as Kavanaugh was leading this team, as Pat Kavanaugh was leading this team. So can Chris Kavanaugh do that? And I will say, man, I'm not going to question a Kavanaugh, but one of the questions I'm asking and other people are asking is, how will Chris do kind of anchoring some of that dodging load from the attack? And I wasn't sure if they were going to have to change that much, and maybe they just have other people dodge. But now I saw a couple of clips that would indicate that Chris Kavanaugh has, potentially figured out that spot, and I think you might see his game and his style change a little bit, and you may see him look a little bit more like his brother. It's not going to be as crazy, but he's got those skills, and he's absolutely a sniper in terms of shooting, in terms of his efficiency that way. So if you can figure out the dodging and the feeding part on top of it, then Notre Dame's right back in the hunt, and they have a good shot at repeating. If they can't figure out where to find that dodging presence, and if they can't find a guy that's going to demand the attention of 2 or 3 defenders every possession, that will hurt them. But defensively, I think they might even be a better team than they were a season ago, so long as Ricciardelli is the answer at cage, and he can put up numbers similar to what Entenmann put up. A lot of people would say that Entenmann was the best goalie in the country last year. I called him the second best goalie in the country last year, behind Emmett Carroll. And I think that the defense played a lot into that team's success, more than just Entenmann, where I think Entenmann got a lot of those accolades and everything like that. I sound like I'm shitting on Entenmann. If he saw me, I would understand why he'd want to slap me in my face here. I'm not shitting on him. The dude's incredible. He's a pro. He's going to be a pro for another decade or more. So yeah, that's it, guys. That is my top 10. You can chirp me in the comments. Tell me how wrong I am. If you want me to rip through the rest, which actually, you know what? Let's not stop yet, guys. What are we at here? 31 minutes. This is a podcast. We're going to go a little bit further here, and I am going to bring out the poll for Inside Lacrosse. All right, so let's rip through mine from the back to the front. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. I had Richmond at number 20, so I nailed that, and I was with everybody. I had Ohio State at number 19. Holy crap, this is looking great. I had Harvard at 18. Things are really lining up here. Now, Towson at 17. I actually like Towson. I have them written up, and we'll talk about them. Maybe I'll do an individual video for them during the week, but I actually had Towson at 13, which is a huge jump over all of these teams. But I think Towson brings back enough, to actually be a good team, and I don't think frog jumping, some of these teams in here is out of the question here. So that's where they differ. I have Michigan at 17, and this poll has Towson at 17. North Carolina 16. That's where I had them. I put North Carolina right there. Army at 15 is what I had, and that's one of the ones I think I would have changed. Army lost enough that I think that they're going to struggle a little bit, and I think last year they almost overachieved with what they had to some degree. So I saw people that put Army even higher than this. So Army at 12. I had Army at 15. Georgetown. I had Georgetown at 14. And they have Penn State here. And like I said, I'm a little bit higher on Penn State simply because I think that what they're returning is probably going to be good enough for them to not drop all that much. I like Ferasian back in cage as well. They have Penn at 13. Like I said, I had Towson at 13. They have Army at 12. I had Army at 15. Georgetown at 11. I had Georgetown dropped all the way down to 14. And my reason is Georgetown has lived off of the portal for the last 2 or 3 seasons, and this is the first season where you don't see them bring in and I'm not just talking like mediocre dudes that could fill roles. Georgetown's been bringing in legitimate killers the last couple of seasons here. I mean, stealing Tucker Dordovic from Syracuse. They robbed North Carolina of a couple of grad students a season ago. So I feel like Georgetown of all the teams is the one that's more likely to fall off because they simply haven't retooled the roster overall. They had Denver at 10. I had Denver at 10. So see, maybe I put Denver in the proper place. They have Yale at 9 and Hopkins. I swapped them. I had Hopkins at 9, Yale at 8. They have Duke at 7. I had Duke at 7. Virginia at 6. I had them at 5. Maryland at 5. I had them at 3. Princeton at 4, which is where I had them, and that's the switch here. Maryland and Cornell, I'd swapped them between them and Virginia. So they're Cornell coming in at 3. I don't think it's crazy by any means, but what is crazy is that. That's the crazy thing. And listen, I'm not chirping people's votes. You get to vote however the fuck you want to in this, and I respect that completely. But I want to know the guy that gave Cornell that number 1 vote, because I think that I don't think it's necessarily wrong. By the end of the year, offensively, they're good enough, and in Cage, I think they're good enough to do damage, and I think they could end up in the Final Four, and then that justifies this preseason ranking. But defensively, I think that they're so not good that giving them the third spot, I feel like is a little high. Someone giving them a nod of 1, I think is just is nuts. I think that's nuts. But to each your own. That's cool. But I am curious who the guy that did that was. Syracuse at number 2, that's where I had him. Notre Dame at number 1, that's where I had him. So I generally gelled with the other voters here, it looks like. Outside of, I think my big ones were Army, Georgetown, and Army, Georgetown, and Maryland, I think was where I really kind of broke the most from everybody. So that's my first rambling podcast here. I do a bad job with these ones simply because it's hard to talk about all these guys, and you have to kind of overly prepare for it in the sense of writing it out. And it's so, there's just not a whole lot to go off of here. Once we start watching games and then we start covering the games, that's where I really enjoy it and where I shine. So thank you for watching. And then in terms of the season, this season, Sunday, I'm just going to ramble. I'm going to do an episode like this. I'll splice in highlights and things of that sort, as I always have for the Sunday show. But then I'm just going to put out 1 or 2 shorter episodes during the week that are just covering a specific team, a specific player, a specific point, and something like that. So the goal is to try to get you 3 pieces of content a week, one of them me rambling for 30 minutes or more, and then the other 2 being maybe a little bit more concise, kind of YouTube consumable type content or whatnot. So that's how we're going to roll. Go back to LaxFactor.com, get yourself some crap, get yourself a t-shirt, whatever you want to do. Support the channel by sharing it, subscribing, liking, all of that good stuff. And that is it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And Hoost is out.
The LaxFactor Podcast.